The Solitaire Series, Episode 3, The King of Hearts, by Troy Lambert. Narrated by Troy Lambert. I think I'm in love. You're not in love. Maybe not, but I think I am. Brandon stood, feet apart, staring at the motorcycle on the turntable in the casino. A sign underneath said in bold red letters, "Win me." You know what the odds of winning that bike are? The nameless woman next to him said. He only knew that she was part of Solitaire, the semi-secret organization he worked for, and that she was a high-ranking member. The diamonds dangling from her earlobes were at least a carat each, and he didn't even want to know what the necklace around her pale neck might be worth. Her blonde hair was tied up in a bun, at least partly to show off the jewels she wore, he was sure. Not that they detracted from her gorgeous face. Well, if I don't win it, I'll just buy it. With what? The money you're going to pay me. I know I'm in love with money. You do have a job for me? They were right about you. You're no fun. Not true. And who are they? You know I can't tell you that. You're not a courier, he said. You're not a joker. Brandon paused. No, I'm not. The king's rules, nothing more. Indeed, he said dryly. What can I do for you? We have a target. How much do they owe? This one is different. Different how? He asked. This job is of a more personal nature. Who did the target piss off? The blonde sighed and looked at him, really stared. Brandon shifted from one foot to the other. How long have you been doing this? She asked. Right. No questions. It's just when I'm not supposed to collect money someone owes, I get curious about how exactly I'm getting paid. Understood. Here's the address. Fucking L.A.? He said after looking at the slip of paper she handed him. Fucking L.A., she replied. Once you're successful, there's a safe in the office behind the Van Gogh on the east wall. Here's the combination. Brandon looked at the slip of paper and saw groupings of letters. MKGPI, XLRAU, SNJVZ. What's this? Solitaire, Code Deck 3. I don't think I have that one. It's in his top left desk drawer. It doesn't have a lock. Remember, solve the code by hand. No computers, no phones. Got it. Easy enough. Time-consuming, though. If he doesn't get a chance to trip the alarm, you'll have all the time you need. Thanks, he said. I'll see you. But it was too late. She'd already turned to walk away. When she was out of sight, he turned and headed out the door. Get the jet ready, he said into his phone, hailing a nearby cab. Henderson Executive, he told the cab driver as he got in. There's 50 extra in it if you hurry. The cabbie squealed his tires as he pulled away from the busy casino parking lot and headed south. Once aboard the jet, Brandon found everything he needed already there. A pocket-sized .38, gloves, a lockpick set, a phone with e-lock hacking software, and a completely black outfit. How long? He asked the pilot. An hour, give or take. Got it. Wake me when we arrive. He kicked back on the bed in the cabin after changing his clothes and fell instantly asleep right after takeoff. He woke just in time for the heavy braking that accompanied their landing. Thanks, he told the pilot once they were in the hangar. Refuel and keep the engines warm. We're returning tonight, sir? Provided I can finish my business. If not, I'll text you and we'll leave in the morning. Outside the plane, a red Mercedes S-Class waited for him. He slid into the tan leather seats, punched the address into the navigation, and sped off. 42 minutes to go 20 miles? He thought to himself. Fucking L.A. By the time he arrived at the classic glass-fronted building that served as his target's home, 47 minutes had passed. A motorcyclist splitting lanes had nearly taken out his mirror as he rode by. The paint might even be scratched. Brandon hated L.A. with a white-hot passion, and the traffic and insane drivers were only two of the reasons. He drove by the target house and parked a block away. Once he got out of the car, he stretched and flexed his muscles. He lifted his left foot behind him, grasping it with his right hand, and stretched his thigh. Then he switched and stretched the other side. A little boy rolled by on a bike, pedaling slowly. He waved, and the kid waved back. He won't remember me, he thought. I'm just like every other rich white asshole in this neighborhood out for a jog. With that, he jumped in place a couple of times, reached and touched his toes, and took off jogging back the way he'd come. The gun rested in his right sweatshirt pocket. The phone and lockpick set were in the left, but he probably wouldn't use those. Once the target saw his face, he'd be dead. The house looked like a Frank Lloyd Wright creation on the outside. There was a lot of glass on the front of the building, broken up by pillars of red brick. From the driveway, the glass looked like mirrors. Brandon saw himself reflected in various shapes as he walked towards the front door. There was no use hiding. If the victim didn't know he was coming, he would soon enough. Besides, the easiest way past a locked door was for someone to let him in. He rang the doorbell, one of those new video kinds. There was no answer, but part of it lit up. Someone was monitoring it, but they could be here or anywhere, for that matter, watching on their phone. He rang again. "Who is it?" a voice answered. It was male, deep. It sounded tinny and artificial through the tiny speaker. "Solitaire," he answered. Dropping the name of the organization instead of using his own didn't always work, but it did this time. The door clicked. "Come in," the voice said. Brandon opened the door and stepped inside. The house was silent. He found himself in an entryway, the glass now transparent behind him, revealing the desert landscape outside. A small greeting area was to his left, containing a couch and a chair. There was another opening straight ahead of him, leading to what he assumed was a dining room area. Overhead hung an elaborate chandelier, dark at the moment. "Hello?" he called out. "Where are you?" His right hand stayed on the pistol, but he kept it in his pocket. He took 2 steps inside, 3. Then a shadow appeared from the hallway to the right. "That's far enough," it said. Brandon froze and turned that direction. A man stood there, his arms were folded across his chest. Next to him, Brandon could see the shadow of a dog with pointed ears. Doberman? Shepherd? Either way, he didn't want to mess with either one of those. He raised his hands, leaving his weapon in his pocket. "I don't want any trouble, man." "I'm sure you don't. Who sent you?" "If you know why I'm here, you know I don't know that." The shadow clicked its tongue. The dog growled. Again, "Who sent you?" "Blonde, pale, blue eyes, expensive jewelry." "How are you getting paid?" "I have the combo to your safe." There's no reason to lie. The most likely outcome of this scenario was that one of them would not survive this encounter. Either way, whatever happened here, stayed here. "What if I give you half to lead?" the shadow asked. "I'd be as good as dead myself." "Who are you?" "They call me the King." "Any relation to—" "No," Brandon snapped. "That's my second least favorite question." "What's your least favorite?" "Why do you want to know?" "So I can ask it. When you lose your temper and attack me, I can release Boris here to do you in." "You might be surprised. I'm a dog person." "Boris isn't much of a person. "Step on out here and let's talk face to face," Brandon said. "I did bring something for you." Slowly he reached his hand into the right pocket and left it there. "I bet you did." He heard a light switch click and got his first good look at the man he'd been sent to kill. "Can we talk?" the man asked. Brandon stopped breathing. The man's face was half covered in blackened and sagging skin. Where his right eye should have been, there was a gaping hole, the upper lid drooping over it, the lower lid laying listless on his ruined cheek. His head was either shaved or he was no longer capable of growing hair on it. On the preserved side of his face, a light brown eye stared at him through normal lids. The undamaged half of his elongated nose held a giant nostril, one that seemed capable of devouring a marble or a substantial line of cocaine in a single sniff. His mouth was his oddest feature, one side full-lipped and smiling, the other lipless and sagging, unable to resist gravity. 2 rows of large white teeth remained oddly intact. "Sure," Brandon managed. "I suppose I can give you that." He looked down and saw the dog, a normal-looking Doberman, black and tan, ears pointing straight up like a Batman mask. The dog licked his lips. "He's not likely to kill you," Ruined Face said, "unless I tell him to." "Good to know," Brandon said. "What do you want to talk about?" "Can we sit?" Brandon noticed the man carried a cane in his left hand. His right one looked withered with scars, too, and his leg on that side looked thin. "Why not?" Brandon turned toward the living room where he saw a couch on one side and one of those automatic recliners in the help-me-stand position. It was covered in dark green material that appeared to be leather, with a knit blanket draped over the back. Brandon took the couch. His intended victim took the recliner and pressed a button that lowered him into a more normal seating position. "I'm Jack," he said. "Brandon King, but people just call me King," Brandon said. "That's why they sent you?" "Not sure I understand. I'm not the first to come after me, you know. They've sent others, Solitaire, that is. Not one has succeeded in their mission, as you can see." "Why not?" "They either can't bring themselves to kill me because, well, you can see that for yourself, or they take my offer and leave." "Does that mean you don't have much money left?" "No. I'm always making more. It's one of the reasons they want to be rid of me. Turns out no one suspects a cripple getting lucky at the tables, even if he is cheating." "Cheating?" "Technically cheating. Counting cards. Tactics frowned upon by various solitaire establishments." "How much?" "How much what?" "How much have you won?" Brandon asked. "From Solitaire and their concerns? Who knows the exact amount? I gamble all over, and I'm not sure anyone has any idea which places or how many of them actually belong to them. Besides, it's their fault I'm a cripple anyway." "Okay. How much is in your safe, for example?" "Ah, there it is." The man laughed. It made his mouth and the ruined side of his face move in an odd and jiggling way. Brandon had to suppress a gag, but managed to nod. "They gave you the combination and code, no doubt." "Solitaire, deck 3 to be exact." "What if I told you I changed the combination since my last visitor?" "You might live a little longer, because I'd need that combination from you." "And if I don't give it to you?" Brandon shrugged. "From your appearance, I assume pain wouldn't be a great motivation for you to talk, but I might be able to find a way." He rubbed the gun in his pocket nervously. This was supposed to be simple. But what if Jack had changed the combination? If he'd killed him right away, his return would be nothing without cracking the safe. He knew some guys, but that meant splitting the take. "You're wondering if you can crack the safe. You want to see it?" Brandon nodded. The motor on the recliner whirred at the touch of a button, and a painful moment later, Jack stood and grabbed his cane. "Follow me," he said. Brandon did. This man had an odd trust in him. He could have shot him any time, in the back even, as he walked. He had no idea what the dog might do in that case, but he thought he could probably shoot it before it did too much damage. But he didn't do any of those things. The gun was there if he needed it. Jack limped into a room straight ahead of them and turned on the light. What Brandon assumed was a print of Starry, Starry Night hung in the middle of one wall. The dominating feature in the room was a large oak desk, centered on a rug that covered the hardwood floor, worn bone white in places and clearly in need of refinishing. A large leather chair sat behind it, and two smaller wingback-style chairs sat in front. The dog padded in behind them and sat in the doorway, watching him closely. "You know where it is, I assume?" Brandon nodded. "I do." The man gestured with his good hand, and Brandon took the painting down, revealing the safe. "Watch the duffel bag on the floor," Jack told him. Brandon stepped over a black canvas-looking bag and studied the safe. An older dial-style model, it looked strong, and there was a wire running from the knob through a small hole in the wall. "You want to know what the wire is for?" Jack said. "I do." "It's connected to a small bomb, something you might call an anti-personnel device filled with shrapnel. Get the combo wrong, and you'll lose your lower half. You might not die, but if you don't, you'll wish you had." "You've thought of everything." Jack smiled again, and again Brandon had to suppress a gag. His face, God, his ruined face. Clearly there wasn't a thing wrong with his mind, though. Clip the wire, you die. Get the combo wrong, you die. Kill me, you won't ever know the combination. So tell me, Mr. King, how about taking my offer?" "Your offer?" "I give you half the money in that safe, you walk out of here a rich man. Any other outcome, you're either poor, dead, or both. I haven't been poor since— Spare me. I don't want to know your life story, Mr. King. I only need one thing." "What's that?" "An answer." Jack sat down at the desk and pressed a button. What Brandon had assumed was the normal clock on his desk started a countdown. 3 minutes. Brandon moved towards him, but he heard a deep growl from his right. He looked, and the dog was standing now, teeth bared. You have less than 3 minutes. No matter what you do to me, if you run, the dog will catch and kill you, probably before you can draw that little .38 and kill him, but you're welcome to try. Brandon looked around the room. He had been drawn into a perfect trap. The desk will protect me well enough from the blast. The charge is directional and precise. Brandon hesitated. You've got a deal, he said. Oh, good, Jack said. You seem like a decent enough guy, and I'd hate to have to kill you. He pressed a button, and the timer stopped. With a few labored movements, he stood. Let me get your money, he said. He opened his ruined hand to reveal a remote. I'll be holding this. If I press the button, the timer starts again. Understood? Brandon nodded and moved aside. Jack stepped into position in front of the safe and shielded the dial while he entered the combination. A second later, the safe opened. Brandon looked inside and saw dozens of stacks of wrapped hundreds. Jack grabbed the duffel bag from between his feet and opened it, tossing it to Brandon. As he moved forward, the dog growled at him again. 9, Jack said. Sits. The dog sat. Brandon held the heavy-duty bag, one that appeared to be strong and was a little heavy, even empty. Jack passed him wrapped stacks of money. There, Jack said. How do I know that's half? You want to count it, or trust me? Jack dangled the remote from his damaged hand. I can start the timer while you decide. Trust is good, Brandon said. Nice doing business with you. Glad we could. Brandon kicked Jack's good leg out from under him, dropped the bag, and leapt behind the desk, hitting the button on the timer as he did. The crippled man collapsed against the wall below the safe, the exact spot where he indicated the bomb was. The bag of money rested between his legs. The dog growled, but Jack yelled, 9! Sits! The Doberman reluctantly obeyed, his eyes never leaving Brandon. He pulled out his pistol and aimed it at the dog. I don't want to kill your dog, and I don't want to kill you. I can stop the timer. You're all so predictable, Jack said. That timer won't set off the bomb. Only this remote does. I don't believe you, Brandon said, so I'll just let the clock keep counting down. Either way, if you press that button, you die. The timer ticked. 1:15, 14, 13. Okay, Jack said. What do you want? A new deal. Which is? I take most of the money. I'll leave you enough for travel. I'm sure you have an emergency out. You and the dog walk out of here and go wherever you want. I never see you in the United States or anywhere near a Solitaire property again. I don't care what you do elsewhere. I can't. Not a good answer. 45, 44, 43. Fine, just stop it. No more tricks. I don't know what happened to you, or I might be sorry you're crippled. I love dogs, and I really don't want to hurt one. But I've done a lot of things on this job I haven't loved doing. Done. I promise. 23, 22, 21. One more thing. Jesus Christ, what? Give the dog the safe word. I know you have one, to let him know I'm okay. No. Brandon raised the gun towards the Doberman. Okay, Boris. Print. The dog stopped growling and laid down. Good, Brandon said. He pressed the button. 03. He tossed the bag over with one hand. Fill it. Leave yourself what you need. Jack stood, unzipped the bag, and complied the best he could one-handed. Now toss it over. Brandon picked up the bag when it landed at his feet. It was delightfully heavy. Stay there. Tell the dog, too. Boris, bleib. Give me the remote. Carefully. Jack held it out, and Brandon took it from his hand, studying it. I'm going to leave. Don't do anything, even move, for let's say 5 minutes. The next time I'm in L.A., this house better be empty. If I see you again, you die. Understood, Jack said. Mind if I sit? He did look like he was in pain. He won't be for much longer, Brandon thought. Sure, right there, against the wall. Jack slid down. Thanks. On second thought, the dog shows me to the door. You got a command for that? Yep. Boris, pass auf. Brandon smiled at him. Great doing business with you. He headed down the hall and toward the door. After he opened it, he turned to the dog. Boris, sits. The dog obeyed. Good dog. The dog stayed. Brandon walked down the street to the Mercedes. He popped the trunk and dropped the bag inside, then opened it. Stacks of hundreds greeted him. I think I'm in love, he said softly. He closed the trunk, grinned, and pressed the button on the remote control. He heard an odd click from inside the trunk. The world flashed yellow, and as he sailed through the air, he realized he couldn't hear anymore. His back struck something hard. His body folded. Something broke inside him, then he fell, glimpsing the shocked face of a little boy sitting on a bicycle. Then he felt the impact as his head struck the ground. His world faded to nothing. The end. If you enjoyed this episode of the Solitaire series, stay tuned for the next episode, The Queen of Diamonds.